Question number 1, a brief summary of what we did. We reorganised all the costumes that we had used for the flash mob and the publicity that we'd done the weekend before. Put those all back on the rails and made sure we had them all labelled. Then, while everybody else was in their dance lesson, which I couldn't do because my back is injured, I carried out a stock check for the costume department and another one for the props team, and wrote lists of everything that we had and that we didn't have. And in that time, I also finished sewing the gold embellishments onto the wedding dress costume for Alice in the final walk down scene. I was asked to search the green room to find some shoes for the dame, so I was working on costume a lot on the Monday, and also helped with the props as well because I helped paint the fruit for the props and brought a few extra props in that we can use. On Tuesday, we were mostly in the dome. We went through a lot of musical numbers. We went through Get Happy, Shakalaka Baby, Live and Let Die, and the Sailor Medley, including In the Navy, which I'm also involved in. We also had a bit of a search for extra bits of costume that we thought might be good, like in the Navy musical number, if we could have hats, like a police hat and a Native American headdress, as though we were the village people, which would be quite funny. We also went through scene 8, and then when it got to Tuesday, we did a Q to Q, which took quite a while. And I was helping organise costumes for everybody, and we found an extra costume for one of the Arab characters, which we'd been missing a costume for quite a while. That night I took Alice's village address home and took it up because it was too long, and I also took up Sophie's Arab dress that we'd found that night as well, and made a ship's wheel prop for the ship scenes. The next day we finished the Q to Q in the morning and started a dress rehearsal. So we all got into costume. I helped everyone else into costume and waited off stage, checking the running order. And we finished with the dress rehearsal on Thursday. And then the second cast got to go through their dress rehearsal as well. And that's what we did this week. Question number 2, discuss what progress you made. This week was Tech Week, so I made a lot of progress in the organisational aspects of putting on the show. I became a lot more familiar with all of my cues and a lot more confident with performing to an audience. I feel like I was more prepared to perform to a larger audience, as for these dress rehearsals that we did, we had our tutors, all of them, watching us, and they were behaving as children and purposely trying to put off anyone that was on stage all the time, just so that we would be prepared in case something like that happened on the real night. If there were some difficult children in the audience, we would need to be ready to cope with something as surprising as that. So we'd know how to, I feel like I would be able to respond to some sort of unexpected situation like that a lot better now. For example, when I went on stage at the beginning and did my initial entrance monologue, one of my tutors shouted in the voice of a child, "Get off the stage!" and which did shock me for a brief moment, but I feel like I coped with it really well, and I hope that I didn't show my surprise, and I didn't stumble over my lines and I didn't stop, so I'm quite proud of what I did there. And I think that's a vast improvement because it shows that I can remain focused when there are some unexpected circumstances thrown my way. So I was really happy about that. I also feel like I've made progress in the musical number, One Day More, because I've managed to learn it properly so that I always come in on time. And since I'm at the front of the V formation that we are stood in on the stage, as if we're on a ship, I'm at the prow of the ship, I think you'd call it. Right centre stage, right upstage as well. So I need to look really, really confident. And I feel like I've made some progress there, and that physically I look a lot more confident than I used to. And that my stance and posture is much improved. So I feel like I've made quite a lot of progress there as well. Question number 3, what was the effect of what you did? I feel like the progress I made in my confidence and my stage presence was really effective in bringing the pace of the play up, or the scenes that I'm in, at least. I feel like the pace is much improved, and while that is down to the group as well as me, I feel like I contributed to that, because Jack's job is to keep the pace up and keep the energy very high. So I feel like that was quite effective. I also feel like the progress we made in the song was quite effective because it was a lot smoother by the end of the final rehearsal, which is down to confidence and knowing where you're supposed to come in, timing, remaining focused. I feel like that was quite effective. I also feel like the feedback I got was really useful. I did get some feedback on the Wednesday afternoon halfway through our dress rehearsal, and I focused on that a lot to improve my performance when we finished our dress rehearsal the next day. And I think that just had the effect of making me a lot more focused, and I was more aware of where I should be improving. So my movement, I think, was what I focused on, and I think that did improve quite well. So I was quite happy about that. Question 4. Evaluate how effective the work completed was and say why it worked well or less well. We did experiment with a few final things in Tech Week, just because it was our last chance to have a play about with the different things we were using and see what might work for the final performance. For example, in scene 8, when we were sinking the ship, we tried different ways of making the waves with the blue fabric that we were using as the sea, with a few stagehands that would run on in their blacks and wave them about as if it looked like waves of the sea in the storm. And this actually did work really well. We experimented with a few different ways of staging the scene, as in when the waves are low, everybody starts moving in slow motion, and as soon as the waves come up high and sort of block the view the audience has of the stage, this is everybody's cue to slowly swim off of the stage, and that's their cue to exit. And that is something that actually was really effective and worked really well. We tried that again in our final dress rehearsal, and we decided to keep it in because it looked really well. It looked really good and worked quite well. So that's something that that looked really good. We did have some difficulties in that scene because of the sound effects of the storm over the top of everybody talking. We needed to project so much that we would be able to be heard over these really loud, stormy sound effects and the other sailor people in the ensemble shouting. So we had to really holler at each other really loudly what we were supposed to be saying, all of our lines, which was quite difficult, and at first didn't work very well because it was hard to get the shouting clear enough. But with some work and with tweaking the sound effect, we managed to get that to work quite well as well. Yeah. As an example of something that we tried and didn't work quite well, We experimented with different endings for the choreography of In the Navy. When the five of us walked down off the risen stage onto the front of the stage, we all walked down stage and there were too many beats that weren't filled, and we were sort of stood there not doing anything but singing, and it looked slightly off, and we didn't want it to be boring. So we experimented with different formations of clapping in time with the music. All in different directions, we were helped by our second year director Cara with that. It was decided that this didn't work well enough. It didn't quite look right. So she worked out something that we could do. We changed the way we walked around the stage, and we went round another time, following the leader, which is Idol Jack, and we march around the stage a second time before we come and stand in a line in front of the audience. And then on the lines, "We want you as a new recruit," we point at the audience while the dames are paying attention to the captain. So the first thing we tried didn't really work very well, and we changed it to something that was more effective, and we found that worked quite well by that point. Question number 5, discuss strengths and weaknesses. I think this week one of my strengths has definitely been my focus, focusing on work all the time and remaining paying a lot of attention to what's happening around me. And I think this was shown, for example, as I mentioned earlier, when I wasn't flustered by the tutors shouting things on stage that were supposed to distract us, which I'm quite proud of. I think another of my strengths has been the energy that I've been bringing to my character. I think that has worked really well. I was told that we were all working much better as a group. We had a lot more energy. We were all much better on our lines this week. Everything was fine. And we really worked well as a team, and were bouncing off each other, and everything, teamwork-wise, was good. However, to improve, so I suppose as one of my weaknesses, was that I didn't quite milk the moment enough when I was on stage. For example, when Jack is sad about the fact that Alice doesn't love him, to improve, I could milk that moment a lot more and just drag it out for as long as possible to get a really effective comedic response from the audience. So they would feel a lot more sympathetic towards my character if I really dragged that out quite a long time. Also, one of my weaknesses was that I wasn't quite moving around the stage confidently enough. While I had quite a lot of confidence, while we were given our interim grades this week, and I was told that I was performing at a merit with elements of distinction, and the reason I wasn't reaching a distinction was the fact that I was being held back by my movements, because they just weren't confident enough. And there were moments where it was obvious that I was sort of looking around me and checking where everybody else was stood, looking kind of unsure about whether I should be stood over there or whether I should be over there, and thinking about why I would be moving to different places, and it looked slightly unnatural, and that was why I wasn't reaching a distinction. So I really focused on the next day on making my energy a lot higher and making my movements wherever I move on stage a lot more confident. So I feel like that really did improve when I focused on it more, but it was one of my weaknesses. One of my strengths was a few of the little things that I bring to the character. For example, when Jack has his emotional breakdown, I get down on a different level, because the different levels on stage, when he gets to his knees and starts crying, it mirrors the emotions he's going through at the time, which is he's absolutely devastated. So he gets down on his knees to show how low he's feeling, and I think that worked quite well. I think that was one of my strengths. Um, Another of my strengths, I think, might have been my professionalism, because I worked really hard to try and get the show up and running this week, and I think that worked quite well. However, I can always improve, and I think one of my weaknesses would be that I need to focus more on my movement, because I'm not sure enough of it, and it sometimes negatively affects the performance. So I really need to sort out what I'm doing there.